Hello and welcome back to the Fiction Game. I'm your host, as always, Jack, and with me today are Hayden, Sam, Miles, as usual, and new member Tom, who's actually been here for 2 full sessions. But the whole second half of the last campaign broke in half like the Titanic and fell to the depths of the data oceans, and it's never happening.
Not narratively, though.
That's true. It's actually it. I wish the other half had broken off narratively, because the third and fourth sessions of that campaign were way more engaging and had more going on than the first two. It must be Tom. He must just make it way cooler every time he's here.
Definitely.
So, excited to have him on. We are hopping back into the 9 worlds, or Sologia, or the mortal plane and the 8 worlds. There's not really a one specific word for the setting, but we're going back to continue the story of Keath, Alberth, and Marigold, with a couple new characters thrown in. As a quick recap for campaign number 1, we created our characters first session. Hayden created Alberth. I'll let you guys do your character introductions so we know who we're talking about here. Hayden, do you want to introduce Alberth in a couple sentences?
Sure. Symbiote druid, right? Wait, it's been that long.
Okay, Symbiote
right.
druid, yeah.
I've been playing a cleric in D&D, so I was like, wait, no, that was another. Anyway, okay. Symbiote druid, meaning like his magic powers kind of had to do with working well with other people and like buffing each other's like strengths. And as far as like personality wise, he was very just like chill and kind of easygoing and go with the flow kind of personality. He was an inventor. He invented what he called the gun, which was really just a trigger action bow. It was a crossbow, but he called it his gun. That's pretty much it. He spent a lot of time with Keath. He was the other druid of the party, and they were pretty good friends. So, yeah.
Right on. Next up, Sam has been playing the character Marigold. Sam, why don't you introduce Marigold?
Yeah, it's been a minute. He was a wizard slash bard. He was like a noble family, but decided to run away from it. He's kind of a drunkard, and he loses his powers when he drinks, which is something that happens to all other mages, but it happens to Marigold. There's probably a lot of other things I'm forgetting, but we'll probably continue to like redevelop this character as we play this time.
Yep. And finally, Keath, as played by Miles.
Yeah, so Keath was the predator druid, specifically designed to hunt and kill, etc. Obviously, went hunting with Alberth a whole lot. And yeah, I was a dwarven blacksmith, even though I wasn't a dwarf at all, dying of the skulking end. And yeah, my goal was to go and find some dwarven blacksmiths, challenge them to a fight to prove that I had the best steel of them all. And yeah, who knows what happened then.
And Miles, what was the problem with trying to find a dwarf to duel?
Oh yeah, weren't they like basically extinct as a species?
They were genocided about 30 years before the start of the campaign. The last dwarf had died.
You're right.
But Keath was determined to find any surviving members and duel them. So we created these characters. And as we gathered them all up, they all heard about a deathbed prophecy by Archduke Visica, who was a mage, and any caster on their deathbed has a tendency to be able to predict the future just a little bit. On his deathbed, Visica predicted that the queen would be assassinated within the year, and that the throne would be usurped by a caster who was, in Visika's own words, beloved of the people. This caused a lot of panic in the higher up circles, but among the peasantry, it was not necessarily going to impact day-to-day life that much. But our three casters, while they were in a small keep on the border of two different kingdoms, were approached by Vizier Kama, the left hand of the queen, who explained that she was on a mission for the throne, retrieving a rare herb called Golden Gale because the queen had been poisoned. Visika's prophecy was correct. And so she was gathering a group of casters to help protect her little caravan as they returned this herb to the capital. So they were recruited into the caravan and met all their new companions in the caravan. Vizier Kama, of course, assembling the group. Pater Ullman, a high-ranking member of the Church of the Mountain. Rez Kalin, a swordsman who would act as bodyguard. Yasika, an inheritor who had kind of paladin vibes. She was fully armored all the time and had a big sword and shield, and also magic powers derived from the sun. Elway, who was a witch and was in fact Yasika's prisoner, who had her manacled and was going to bring her to face justice because she had stolen a bunch of stuff, as witches tend to do. They embody the powers of chaos. There was also Nairi, who was a blood mage. Blood mages use the powers of either pain or pleasure to create magic, very often healing magic. But you guys didn't get to know Nairi very well because, unfortunately, that very first day that the caravan was assembled, the caravan was attacked. And by the time you guys got back to help, Nairi was already dead. We also met Corric McCarlin, relative of Marigold McCarlin, who fled from his noble birthright in a distant kingdom that bordered the sea. And also... the last member that rounded out your party was Abelka Ashad, a literal angel, one of 8 types of Otherworlders from the 8 Otherworlds. Abelka Ashad, who just 8 foot tall, one of those Renaissance halos so that it looks like his head is backlit no matter where he's turning. Ended up being a valuable asset to this party. And you guys fought chimeras, a demon, several hunters and casters, and fought all manner of baddies on your way to the capital at the foot of Mount Deity. While on your way there, Marigold unlocked a shocking number of secrets, including the fact that their cargo was not in fact the herb Golden Gale, it was the queen herself. She had to be brought to the herb rather than the herb brought to her because of how quickly it wilts after being plucked. And so they were carrying precious cargo indeed. Most of the way through this trip, our heroes were divided from the rest of the party. Had to catch up with them at the capital, where they discovered that the queen was safe and back on the throne, but Vizier Kama and Rez Kalin were dead, leaving Pater Ullman to replace Vizier Kama as the left hand of the queen. However, the story ended well. All of our heroes were granted boons by the queen, and they have their new places here in the capital. Greatly benefited each of them, but there were a number of loose ends that weren't wrapped up by the end of that story. The queen, for example, insisted that, despite her death being witnessed, Vizier Kama would be back within a week or two. She refused to elaborate further, but apparently Vizier Kama has died multiple times. No explanation on the table for that. In addition to which, Pater Ullman seemed shocked and disturbed that Vizier Kama would be returning at all. There's also the prophecy still on the table that Visika predicted that the queen would be murdered and that her throne would be usurped by a caster beloved of the people. That still hasn't happened, but there's still plenty of time left in the year for it to. And Alberth's powers have not been fully restored to him. His power of symbiosis has still not returned to him after a near-death experience during which a demon sort of spun him around and yote him into the forest. That's the past tense of yeet, I'm pretty sure. So, we rejoin our heroes now. Miles, I can't tell with the green screen technology. It's too advanced, and now you are part of the green screen. It's actually deleted you. Oh, you're here. Sweet. Wanted to make sure you didn't miss this part because it's a little plot relevant. It has been 3 months since your return to the capital, and we're going to cover a little bit, just like we had our sort of session 0 at the beginning of the first campaign, where you created your characters, figured out a little backstory, figured out their motivations and their powers. We're going to do a little bit of that, but figuring out what's been happening in the last 3 months for our heroes, as well as creating a new character for Tom. So, the first and most important thing that has happened in these last 3 months, we join, or if I can sort of zoom in the kingdom of Tel Mary and the inconveniently named capital city of Tel Mary. This kind of happens with medieval royalty. The king and the city and the nation all have the same name. It's like King Tel Mary and the city Tel Mary, the capital of Tel Mary. So everyone just calls it the capital. At the foot of Mount Deity, a truly colossal mountain just bursting out from extremely flat plains in all direction. At the foot of Mount Deity is this capital city where we join our heroes, or two of our heroes, namely Alberth and Marigold, as they attend a funeral for dearly departed Keath. Keath.
What a bummer.
You knew that your death was coming at some point soon because you had been diagnosed with a terminal illness called the Skulking End, in addition to which we lost Hayden completely. He's back. I'm just going to keep going. In addition to which, your predator druid powers do not really lend themselves to self-preservation as much as they lend themselves to the ability to hunt and track prey and that kind of thing. So we knew it was only a matter of time, and Miles and I have discussed this off camera. I'm not just popping it on him. You're dead. But we're going to discuss a little bit of what Keath and Alberth and Marigold have done in the last 3 months. And we're going to start with Keath. Miles, after your arrival at the capital, you had some time to sort out your priorities. You were given a smithy in the capital, a sum of money that would be significant even to a nobleman, and more renown maybe than you wanted as a sort of woods, like woods skulking predator druid who doesn't really spend a lot of time around people. You had some time to prepare to continue your quest to find the last dwarves and challenge their finest smith to a duel. So, what were your priorities during that preparation? Did you... and to quickly recap the core mechanical concept for this campaign, every time I give you players a choice, like what do you do, I will give you several pre-selected options, for a couple of reasons, but mostly just to keep the pace up, because having to fabricate a whole course of action wholesale in a world that you don't know everything about it's kind of a lot. So several pre-made selected options for these, but feel free to go a little off script. So what were your priorities for this preparation? Did you use your new resources to purchase more Tiefstahl, which is that dwarven deep steel, to be worked into additional weaponry? Did you hunt down the strange duelist who traveled with those hunter-casters who had been chasing you, who had stolen your second blade? Or do you use your newly found favor with Elkaten, who is your druid patron, to receive a new wild boon?
Probably... I probably would have either, taken that extra dwarven steel and tried to create not the missing link to my twin swords, because that's kind of a package deal they're already done. I probably would have gone and made a new weapon, I think. Probably one that would benefit from being a druid as an idea. Right
on. Do you have a specific idea of what that weapon would be, or I guess that's me asking you a question, so I should supply several options. I think sort of claws, like cestus style. Cestus? Would make a lot of sense for a druid. Or possibly just like knives because you're getting all up in there anyways.
Can they do like whole gauntlets that have like clawed fingers?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Sick.
it's a little edgy, but it's more than justified by the fact that you're like a nature person. You're like a yeah. That sounds great. And you never managed, I believe you never managed to name your swords before one of the two was stolen. Do you have a name for these gauntlets?
No, I'm saving the name for the dwarf that I'll kill with them.
You're gonna name them after. Well, we'll get there. Fantastic. You now have these like shredder gauntlets made out of this deep orange, like this burnt orange Tiefstahl, this metal that no one knows how to make metallurgically, and very few people know how to work. With these additional preparations, you had everything you needed to continue your quest to find the last of the dwarves. Now, when you leave on this journey to chase down the sparse rumors that you've found here and there, did you bring any of your companions with you? Did you bring your recently acquired apprentice, Amala, who wants to be the kind of druid that she believes you are? She's very aspirational, extremely earnest. We met her last campaign. But do you bring Amala with you? Do you bring your now trusted traveling companions, Alberth and Marigold? Did you bring some less close companions whose deaths like wouldn't devastate you as much, like Yasika and Elway? Or was this something you had to do alone?
Probably Alberth and Marigold, to be real.
Right on.
If they wanted to join me, of course.
After weeks of hard travel and chasing sparse rumors, the three of you finally came to a small village in the mountains of Vitan, one of the small kingdoms neighboring Telmeri. This small town is populated exclusively by half-giants. They are not friendly to visitors, but after some prying, you eventually discovered a single resident who stood out amongst the group. He was about your height, but far more broad, with sunken eyes and a painful-seeming, almost jumbled bone structure. A brief discussion revealed that this man, Undrick, was indeed half-giant and half-dwarf, resulting in his height being around your size, but he looks a little messed up, and it's clear he has trouble kind of getting around. As far as he knows, he was the last man in all of the continent with strong dwarven blood. All of his relatives that he knew of had been killed a long time prior. And after hearing about your quest to find a dwarven smith and duel with him, he grimly acknowledges your desires and expresses his own. As a result of the unique circumstances of his birth, he was dying. He knew that it might be a few years, but eventually his bones would crush him under their weight. He had a woman about whom he cared a great deal, and he wanted her to have something when he was gone. He agreed to duel you on the condition that on his death she would receive a great sum of the money that you had gained from your recent quest. It seemed a sad conclusion to what once seemed like a grand quest, but all the rumors that you had heard pointed here, and if there's another dwarf alive on the continent, you have no way of knowing where they are. This seems like truly the end of a bloodline. Again, it seems like a sad conclusion to what once felt to Keath like a grand quest. However, the influence of Elkatan in your mind was loath to the idea of turning down a kill. Did you insist on the duel, honoring his wishes and paying for his sacrifice, reject the duel but give him the money anyways, or did you bring him back to the capital city with you for you both to receive treatment from the Chirurgeons Guild? Remember, that had been the boon that the Queen had offered you, was to speak with the chirurgeons. They've already determined that they don't think there's anything they can do for you long term, but they might be able to make it more bearable short term and make your life last a little longer.
So I could potentially save a dwarf's life and basically like an extinction of a species as we know it. Or kill him and make his wife like, kind of rich a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill him, I think. And I'm going to do more than just give the rest of the money that I haven't invested. I want to give her like the second half of the twin sword and also all of the dwarven steel that I would have left after my creation to give him as much of a boost as I could.
Right on. It is a rainy day on which two dying men face one another in mortal combat. Keath, you wield a single sword as you have given your opponent the gauntlets which you have yet to name. It's still not what you would call a fair fight, but it is an honest one. And you honor the dying man's wishes, giving his mourning loved ones even more than he had requested. They seem to understand his sacrifice, and eventually you and your companions return to the capital. When you get back, the chirurgeons explain that you still have some time, if not a lot of time. A little bit of time before the end. How do you spend that time? Do you, A, keep pursuing Tiefstahl, forge as many Tiefstahl weapons as you can, and record the process so that others may benefit from this technique that may otherwise be lost to time? Do you mentor Amala and reward her earnestness and fervor with extensive druidic training? Or do you give yourself over to the hunt, prowling the forest for a powerful prey until one day the skulking end finally takes you?
Did I have anybody mentor me to be a druid?
No, you did not. You are the chosen of Elkaten, who only selects one druid at a time, and he's one of the most renowned, powerful druidic or wild folk patrons.
Rip. I definitely think I'm going for the blacksmith route there to study and to record as much as I physically can, but this is going to sound weird. Can I write it in code? I don't want the whole world to have it. I want only the specific few who deserve it to have it.
Oh, this brings up an interesting point, Miles, that I hadn't meant to bring up in Keath's very somber backstory. But there is a glimmer of something that you could do for one of your friends. Mages benefit greatly from acquiring knowledge. And as we've discussed before, that knowledge comes in two ways. Either secrets, whose power is derived from how few people know them, or erudition, whose power is derived from the usefulness of the knowledge, and basically that's the two types of knowledge that mages benefit from. The type of knowledge that you just go to a school, you study with scholars and you learn a bunch, that can give you magely powers. Or if you know something that very few other people know, that can give you magely powers. And specific, higher level mage spells are literally bound to knowledge. That the more esoteric it is, the more secret or the more powerful the secret is, the more power it gives them. If you wanted to hand this information to someone who would only give it out extremely sparingly, you could potentially teach Marigold the secrets of how to work Tiefstahl, which would give him great power because he would hold that sort of ancient secret and be one of very few people who knows it.
Then yeah, I'm going to definitely give all the secrets to Marigold while publicly announcing that now that I had killed the last dwarf, the secrets of Tiefstahl has basically been lost, and every time I go to try and make something, it horribly fails to make it even more known that it's not ever going to happen again. And the last guy that knows how to do it can't even do it anymore.
This is fascinating. I hadn't foreseen this particular piece of information becoming like a source of mage power, but that's how it works, and so I think it makes sense that Keath would give that to Marigold. So an excellent way to end Keith's story, and we cut back to Keith's funeral 3 months after the party's return to the capital, as his friends and companions mourn. Alberth and Marigold, you are there. Peter Ullman is there, which is like a little off-putting because you're still, even 3 months on, not sure exactly what's up with him, and we'll get to that during your backstories. But Yasika and Elway are there, and as is Abulka Ashad, who has not left the capital since you guys arrived. He spends most of his time at the Red Temple, which is the sort of blood mage, like, it's basically a hospital that they use whatever blood mage techniques they need to like gain power, and then they use all of that to heal people. And it's the most effective healing center in the entire kingdom. But the floors are all red stained grates, and as a general rule, people don't ask how they get that power. So on that somber note,
Rest in peace.
let's talk a little bit about Marigold. If you'll recall, Marigold. So we're hopping back for 3 months. The Queen wasn't sure what boon she should grant you after your arrival in the capital. She gave you several options from which you can now choose. She offered you your own distillery in the capital, which is adjacent to Alberth's workshop and Keith's smithy. So you can each have like kind of a row of storefronts that's just your party. She offered lessons in magecraft from the Universalists Academy in the capital. This is the best and fastest way to learn magecraft, and it is normally both expensive and exclusive. Not so exclusive that Marigold couldn't get in, being a major, like the heir to a major house in a pretty significant kingdom. But it would have been expensive. And she's offering it for free. Or your third option is official citizenship in the Kingdom of Telmeri, which would provide political protection from your family's constant attempts to bring you back.
I think I would go with the mage school, but I feel like Marigold would probably go with the distillery. I think that one of those is going to be better for the story than the other, so I think I'll go with the mage school.
Right on. Right on. And yeah, that makes sense. Your now extensive experience with magecraft will be reflected once we I couldn't make it this week because I don't know what choices you're all going to make about your backstories. But I intend to, before our next session, have a small spell book for each of you to go to, and it'll be a web UI just like we had built for the last campaign, so that you can just go to that website and see like what your spell options are, so you have it in front of you. I think it'll be a lot easier to keep track of, especially as you guys get more and more like weird magic powers. Yeah, that'll make it easier. So, after that audience with the Queen, in which you were granted that boon, you were disturbed by Peter Ullman's reaction to the news that Vizier Kama might return. You are, after all, well acquainted with the shape of stories, and it seems the intriguing story of Kama's reincarnation and Ullman's secret is only beginning. Following the meeting, what did you do to try to investigate Peter Ullman? Did you approach Ullman directly and, if necessary, use your compulsion spell to force the truth out of him? Did you take a less direct route, keeping track of his movements and snooping on his letters and communications? Or did you use your resources to hire an investigator, an expert in this sort of thing?
I remember how I played Marigold. I think he's not a super subtle person in general, so I think I probably would just go talk to him and use the compulsion spell. That seems to have worked pretty well.
Right on. Yeah, you did approach him. However, there was a brief moment in the last campaign that I think I wouldn't have expected anyone to notice, in which Ullman kind of dropped the fact that he had psychic training. You didn't realize until this attempt how extensive Ullman's training in psychic protections was. If you'll recall, Marigold had attempted, or had used compel indiscretion on a number of people during the first campaign, ranging from people who had really no way to protect from it, like the merchant, like trade master from whom you stole the writ of trade, to the sort of baron of that petty barony who had a little bit of training but ultimately was not able to shake off Marigold's like psychic attack, ranging all the way up to that demon whose defenses were like an impenetrable steel wall, until of course you found a way to subvert that. But we'll get back to that later. Pater Ullman's defenses prove nigh insurmountable, which is unexpected for someone who's just like a clergyman. There must be more to his story, but he clearly senses your attack, and his expression turns dark. You are eventually forced to leave without gaining any satisfactory answers.
Can't I, once that fails, can't I go the more direct route and just question him outright?
That was the more direct route. What do you mean?
Oh, you're saying, okay, I thought I was trying like a psychic attack, like subtly, and then he got mad when he discovered I was doing the attack, but he's mad when I asked him questions.
He's dodgy when you ask him questions. He is mad when you do the psychic attack. He's a slippery one, Pater Ullman. Okay. But yeah. Next question. We had talked at the end of the last campaign. Marigold was a little bit shaken by his combat experiences on the road to the capital. You have had the opportunity since then to increase your battle readiness. How have you chosen to do so? Have you specialized your magecraft towards combat-ready spells? Have you studied the way of dancing steel with Swordmaster Sarathi, whom you met in Ernhold? Or the third option, you'll probably be fine. You forwent combat training, instead choosing to focus on advanced non-combat magecraft. Worst comes to worst, you can hire a bodyguard or something.
Forwent, is that a word? That's awesome.
It is a word.
Like it. Let's see. I think that maybe he was really worried. I was really worried, so I started trying to learn something, and then I learned like a basic fireball, and then decided that that was good, and then I dived really deep into the non-combat stuff.
Right on.
After not spending very much time actually getting good at the combat magic.
Sounds good. So you've got like one spell, but if that fails, it's someone else's job?
Yeah, and maybe I did a solid week of sword training before I pissed her off enough that I had to leave.
Sounds good. Right on. And the last question, the most character development heavy one. As your skill in magic deepened, you started to notice a greater and greater limit on your spells due to your near constant intoxication. It was time to enact a solution. Did you make an honest attempt at permanent sobriety? Did you try to replace your dependence on alcohol with another depressant, something like Greenleaf, which does not impede your casting in the slightest? Or did you attempt to find a second patron, not one of the Ascended, from whom you can gain powers that are not limited by drunkenness, but which means you wouldn't, those spells wouldn't be mage spells?
If I were to say like push my drinking to like every fourth day, I get hammered, and then I hold off for 3 days, would that be enough to allow me to not have that limitation?
It would still be a problem on that fourth day, but 3 out of 4 days you'd be fine. Yeah.
I think that's maybe what I'd do.
Right on. That
like
wraps
just
up.
making a sustainable habit.
All right. The Chirurgeons Guild approves of your limiting your drinking, but they also worry about how much drinking you do on that fourth day. But when haven't they? That wraps up Marigold's backstory. That's been the last 3 months. We're going to cut to Alberth. After your near-death experience, during which you were comatose for a little while, your relationship with magic changed. You have still not recovered your ability to use symbiotic link. However, perhaps sensing a void or perhaps drawn by the results of your strange vision, you've been approached by representatives of several otherworldly patrons, each of whom offer you a new bond. Do you take any of them up on the offer? This would make you a double caster. Like, you'd be a second type of caster on top of being a druid. A Razorkin, who offers you the powers of an acolyte blood mage. Elysian, and a close friend of Abelka Ashad, who offers you the powers of a servitor. A Wraith, who offers you the powers of a witch. Or do you prefer to stay a druid alone? There's no real advantage, but if that's the choice that Alberth would make, then that's the choice that Alberth would make.
Cool. I think not accepting a new one is probably like what Alberth's natural state would be until Abelka Ashad's friend comes up. Because, like, he's curious. So I think he would, like, if that's the order that they come in, he would turn down the first one and be like, no, that's okay. I'm just going to wait until it works again. But no, if he's got a chance to be anything like Abelka Ashad, he's going for it.
Right on. Sweet. Yeah, you have gained the powers of an acolyte servitor, which will be reflected on your spell list once I write up the web UI for that. Second question. Your invention, the gun, has drawn significant attention. You now have a workshop with which you can produce anything you can think to create. Do you keep, or do you start mass producing and selling the gun, or do you keep the secrets of the gun to yourself in order to maintain an advantage in combat?
I think Alberth would be more proud to see it out in the world. He wouldn't be jealous of, you know, his cool thing getting out there. And I think he would almost work to push it out there in Gunny's memory. Like, make it worth it.
Right on.
Kind of thing.
Two things, really quick. Have we actually recapped the gun? Was that part of your character recap? I've already forgotten.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So we know it's a crossbow, but he calls it a gun. Just had to cover that out loud. And second of all,
we haven't gone over the tragic backstory though, so you might have to go back and. But that's for the viewer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. And yeah, the second thing, you should know that now that Marigold's family isn't financially supporting him anymore, and with this Alberth's booming new business of selling the gun throughout the capital, Alberth is now the wealthiest member of the party by a significant margin, which is not a position that Alberth is used to being in.
Yeah.
So,
all right, good to know.
Final question. The workshop is an excellent place to hash out new ideas for weaponry, tools, armor, etc. You invent something else, or you invented something else in the last 3 months. Is it, number one, and feel free to come up with your own if you want to have invented something else, but number one, a pressurized container for dispensing liquids at high speeds, like Ichor, which was useful to you during the last campaign, or salt water, since you now know that salt does damage to demons, or any other liquids you might discover to be magically relevant. Number two, do you invent limb assistance and limb replacement devices to help the injured in the capital? Or do you create an even better gun with a sliding chamber to automatically reload and an adjustable draw strength?
Oh, shoot. I love the... Dude, a bolt-action crossbow sounds dope. But I think I'm going to have to go with the Super Soaker. Just because, like, he will have replayed that demon encounter over and over in his mind and probably decided that assault shooter or something like that would have been way more effective than a faster crossbow.
Right on. And that does it for the Alberth recap. Now, finally, let's make Tom's character. Tom. This is a, I believe, 5-step process. Yep. First, your primary connection to the magic system. These are each types of caster. And as a quick recap for you and any of our viewers who haven't seen the first campaign, all magic in this world is derived from one of the 8 worlds outside of the mortal plane. So casters, anyone who can cast a spell, any magic user basically, has powers that they have gotten from a patron who is something that's from another one of these worlds. So you might get power from an angel from Lycia, or you might get powers from a demon from the Hells. But that's how all spells are gained. They're all linked through a patron. Your 3 options for your primary connection to the magic system. Are you a witch, which means you would have gotten your powers through bonds with a wraith? Witches use the power of chaos and undeath to disrupt systems of injustice. That's their whole thing, is like chaos used for a good purpose. Are you an inheritor? Pretty much the polar opposite of a witch. Inheritors are earthly servants of those of the sun. An inheritor gains powerful battle prowess and sort of sun-themed powers in exchange for their service in a solar crusade. Or are you a destruction warlock? Warlocks gain their powers through pacts with demons. Warlocks have brutal and blunt magic, and destruction warlocks specifically are charged with the destruction of irreplaceable things. That is how they serve their bond and how they gain more powers. So, witch, inheritor, or destruction warlock?
I was going to go with witch, but I really enjoy the idea of the destruction of irreplaceable things, so we're going to go with destruction warlock.
Right on. Second question, your primary non-magical skill set. Are you a thief, a high-ranking and experienced member of a thieves guild? Well-liked, you are personable and congenial in the extreme with connections across the kingdom. Or do you have psychic training? Just like we talked about earlier with Peter Ullman, certain people, you don't even have to be a caster for this to be an option, but you can be trained to resist psychic effects, like compulsion spells and proxy spells.
I think to destroy irreplaceable things, you have to get them first, so I'll go with the thief.
That is a good combination. Destruction warlock and thief. Now, this third question was not part of the original character creation process for these 3, but since they've sort of leveled up a little bit, each in their own ways, since the beginning of the first campaign, you get a secondary magical attribute to sort of catch you up with the rest of the party. Are you a werewolf? Infused with the powers of sanguine, occult, and wild magic, werewolves are fierce predators, but face great weaknesses as a result of their tri-source magic. Basically, you get your magic from 3 of the different other worlds, but each of those brings its own slight limitations as well, and they kind of compound in the same way that the powers kind of compound. Option number 2, are you a demon hunter? A member of a secret organization known as the Hand of the North that hunts down and exterminates demons. Working closely with one of the inheritor crusades, the Crusade Against Hell's Invasion, which Yasuka belongs to. Or do you have Giant's Blood? Just like that whole small town that Keath had visited before he died, you are you are part giant, increasing your size and strength, but at the great cost of your speed. As as funny as half giant thief sounds, actually that's just funny. I don't have anything else to say about that. But werewolf, demon hunter, or giant's blood, which one of those sounds most appealing?
I know you make fun of me because I always play edgy characters, but I like the demon hunter. Sounds kind of epic, and it sounds like a pretty great tie-in for what you guys have been handling in this campaign. So yeah, we'll go with demon hunter.
As an added bonus,
handling is a big word.
What is?
I said handling is a big word. We really got yoded by, okay?
That's a little true, but I just want to mention I also like the idea that you have a bond with a warlock, or with a demon, like a demon gives you your powers that you then use to hunt demons. That's fantastic.
We're clearing the competition.
That's amazing. All right, next question. We're almost at the end. Your core goal. This one you can feel free to... Well, these other questions have been pretty specific to the setting, pretty specific to the magic system, and I don't think going off book would have been advisable for the last questions. But this one, this is all just very negotiable territory. So if you have an idea of what your character's core goal is, feel free to say it. But I'll give you some options that you can pick from as well. You wish to fight injustice, particularly slavery, throughout the kingdoms. The love of your life was a powerful caster who was targeted by a demon and left you to protect you. Your training in magic and combat is also that you can reunite with her. You could sort of have a triple connection to demons with this one. Or you want to discover the hidden secrets of the 8 worlds and the many different types of casters and otherworlders and monsters and spells.
All right. I kind of want to go with can I be the Doomslayer, the only man demon spear? We'll go with the love of my life was just taken by a demon. We'll go with the triple threat.
This is a powerfully themed backstory. It like if Miles had gone back in time and picked both Predator Druid and Werewolf. All right, power combo, and finally, a major conflict, something that might keep you from your goals or even compromise your safety. We had a couple. I really like the ones that we had during the first campaign. That Alberth's death by fire was prophesied by a witch. Keath had the skulking end that he just died from, but like a degenerative illness. And Marigold's big Achilles heel is his addiction to alcohol and gambling. So major conflict. Couple pre-made options. You lost your limb in a tragic accident, potentially one related to the demon that made your wife have to leave you to protect you, or your significant other. Lost a limb in a tragic accident. You are being hunted by an assassin's guild, or you are prone to bouts of mania during which you vastly overestimate your own abilities.
I think I stole the wrong thing from an assassin's guild, and they're after me now.
That is very good. I like that a lot. Hunted by an assassin's guild. Classic conflict. And finally, a name. I could give you a bunch of setting-specific names that might be common to the area, but then you wouldn't really fit with Alberth. So feel free to make one up. I'll also just give you some time to. You don't have to come up with one right now, because we can cut over to Miles, because he's got to create a character now that Keath is dead.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, pour one out for a real one. Miles, your new character. First, your primary connection with the magic system. Are you a servitor, a caster with an angelic or Lycian patron? Servitor's powers are primarily used for healing, light, and diplomacy. Remember, Alberth is now also a servitor, like in addition to being a druid. Are you a blood mage? Skilled in both healing and combat, blood mages gain powers through either pain or pleasure. Both are effective, but one is much easier to attain. Or a harmony sorcerer. Through dedication to a passion, usually an art, sorcerers gain powers over the elements and often the very, very basic resources of magic. Harmony sorcerers specifically specialize in combining their strength with the strength of other casters. So they're like teamwork specialized, much like symbiote druids are. So yeah, servitor, blood mage, or harmony sorcerer.
Can you give me a little bit more information on the first one? Servitor?
Yes, so your bond would be with an angel or a Lycian, just like Ablaka Ashad, who would give you powers as long as you continue to. It's up to like an individual by individual basis what rules different Otherworlders use to like establish who gets spells. But generally, angels ask you to give compassionate service and just do things that are genuinely good. And that's how you gain more power. That's how you level up. That's how you impress them and maintain a relationship with your patron.
And blood mages, we don't necessarily know the source of magic. We know how it operates, but not necessarily where it comes from.
What do you mean by where it comes from? Because blood mages have sort of like mana. Like we've talked about a lot of the other types of casters, like you can cast a spell a bunch and like you kind of get tired, like you can't cast it a bunch of times in a row, but the more you do it, the more you get, like the better you get at it, like working a muscle. Blood mages are kind of like that, but there's also like an internal bar of like how much blood mage power they've built up, and they can replenish that by either inflicting pain or causing pleasure. And so many blood mages only draw from their own pain. They're called flagellants because they tend to use whips to like cause pain but not harm to their bodies. And that's what like powers their internal reserves. Some blood mages never use pain at all. There are literally blood mages at the Red Temple who just are masterful chefs and cook amazing things and invite people over and use the pleasure like created by these masterful meals that they've created to like build up that internal reserve, and they're really powerful. The only problem is it's much easier to beat the crap out of someone than it is to genuinely make them have a good time. So a lot of blood mages just kind of take the easy route and inflict a lot of pain rather than the more painstaking process of like building up power through pleasure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll definitely go blood mage, 100%.
Sweet. Right on. You are so locked in, it makes me feel like you have a very specific idea for what your character in particular is going to do, and I'm imagining all the plot arcs that are working in the gears behind your eyes. Miles, do you care to share any part of what you're thinking?
It's going really fast. Give me a few more options. You'll see it as we finish making the character.
Right on. And the other parts will probably greatly influence it, so yeah. Second thing, your primary non-magical skill set. Are you a master healer, the former chirurgeon of House Yoren, former crown family of the nation of Vitan? You'll notice that I've reused a couple of these like magical and non-magical skill sets so that we have multiple times to like just see the same things, even if it wasn't picked the first time. So, for example, you actually had this option last time you were creating a character, the Master Healer. Option number 2, Sword Master. You're a trained duelist, and that's pretty much it. You're just really good with the sword. No real extra flavor text on that one. Or number 3, Tough. You're not sure what it is about you, but you're just not as easy to kill as everyone else seems to be. So, Master Healer, Sword Master, or Tough.
Wait, what's Master Healer? Can you repeat Master Healer one more time?
Yes. If you choose Master Healer, you are the former royal chirurgeon of House Yoren, which is the former crown family of the nation of Vitan. So you're really, really good at healing, like top of the line.
I'm still going to go with Tough.
Right on. It seems like a good one for Blood Mage, especially if you end up being a flagellant. Just the idea that you can take more damage. Yeah, next up, a secondary magical attribute to catch you up with the rest of the party. There's only 2 of these, there's not 3. But Option number 1, Lycian blood. You are part angel with a limited set of the powers gained by a Lycian, like Abul Kashad. Again, mostly those powers would concern healing, light, and charisma. Or Blessing of the Leshy. Leshy are nature guardian spirits, blessed with druid-like powers, but cursed with mutations that leave them between the life kingdoms that scholars have established of flora, fauna, and mycia. Mycia being like fungal life, like mushrooms, that aren't like quite like other plants. Leshy are like sort of stranded in between those three kingdoms and are like part animal, part fungus, part plant. But yeah, if you choose this option, then long ago you helped a Leshy with a dangerous problem. And now you have received a wild mutation, despite not being a druid. So much like little like Alberth and Keath's like bodies had sort of started to mutate because of their druid powers, that would be happening to you despite you not being a druid. So yeah, Lycian blood or Blessing of the Leshy.
Oh, Lycian blood, angel blood, 100%.
Right on. An angel or a blood mage with Lycian blood is a very interesting combination that I'm very much looking forward to. Next up is your core goal. So let's make you not just a collection of stats, let's make you a person. Again, the bunch of pre-made options. Feel free to go off script if the spirit seizes you. You want to see power in the kingdoms, given not to the few but to the many. You want a revolution. Option 2, you want to atone for something you did a long time ago that still haunts you to this day. And option number 3, you want to hunt monsters to make the world a safer place for the innocent.
Am I allowed to completely flip this on your head for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Core goal, I want to completely destroy the idea of blood magic as a concept. I want to find source of power, eliminate it, to stop torture from happening to people.
Interesting. Now, blood magic can also be gained through, like, not pain. Would you want, like, that to still be a thing? And you just want to stop people from using pain for it at all?
Obviously, like, if it's an option down the road, but at this point, I'm not super concerned, as finding the core source of magic is my main concern.
Interesting. Now, when you say core source of magic, you would know that like this magic comes from like an agreement with a patron, and the patrons who give like blood mage powers are the Razorkin, which are from a world called the Maw. That and this also would mean that you have met one of the Razorkin and have like essentially signed a contract with them that you're like, "Yup, I'll do that." Sweet. Wants to remove. Let me just write this down. This is a recording. I'll write it down later. Right on. Interesting concept. I don't know how it's going to play into the campaign, but I'm sure we'll figure out a way that it does. Last of all, a major conflict, something that might keep you from your goals or even compromise your safety. Option number 1. You gained your success overnight, and you feel out of place and unqualified, to the point of having developed imposter syndrome. Option number 2. You lost someone important and haven't had time to mourn. It's beginning to affect the way you see the world. Or, option number 3, you're simply not as young as you once were. It's getting harder to move around, and that counts twice when it comes to combat.
Mourning.
Lost someone important and haven't had the time to mourn. Roger that. And finally, I will need names from both Miles and Tom for their characters. Miles? You got a name?
Okay, what... Are we still keeping Marigold and Alberth?
Yes, Marigold and Alberth will be ongoing characters, but just you and Tom have new characters. We've got dead air. Tom, you got a name?
Sure. Go with Grayson. I can't think of a good name that fits with Alberth and Marigold, so that'll do.
Grayson. Right on.
That does fit. That's pretty good.
I'm going William.
William. William's a classic name that it's just hard to know at what point in the English language that person is from. You know, William could have existed like just after the fall of Rome. William could have been born yesterday. They're all William. Classic. It's why I still don't know when Pirates of the Caribbean takes place. Anyways. Right on. That's a good session 0. All the characters have been created. The pieces are in place. And next week we will begin the story. Yeah, great session 0. I'm excited to see our new characters meet our old characters. I'm excited to see how the old characters have changed and how they've stayed the same. And I'm excited to get into it with you guys next week. I'm excited to see what happens. We're all going to find out together. I mean, I'm going to find out a little sooner than you, like most of it, but then you're going to fill in the gaps and break all the major plot points that I make by just sort of sequence hopping. It'll be great. And this campaign will probably be longer than the last 2. Which is good, because the last 2 felt a little rushed, you know? I'm excited. I hope you're excited, and I hope you're excited, viewer. Yeah, you guys have anything else? Any parting gifts to the audience? Anything to say before we leave?
Hey, thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Sweet. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Poor Keith. Man, I thought he was gonna pull through.
Yeah, genuinely, rest in peace, Keith.
Yeah.
But also, he knew it was coming.